So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Atiba, Romany, business psychologist with MECCSSS, and I'm joined here with my colleague, engineer Samim Ahmed Laskar. Mr. Samim, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm glad to join you here today as well.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so today we're going to look at 5D BIM centralized cost management and how it works using Cubicost. But before we start, I would like to give a really big thank you to Mr. Ramesh and Ames for giving us this opportunity today. And also to you, the audience, for coming out today. We really appreciate it. You know, it's a Friday, so we really appreciate you coming out. And we hope that you find this webinar both beneficial and interesting. Obviously, because of I think we'll have quite a few participants online. So what I'll do, I will take off my camera just to ensure that the connection is working a bit smoothly. So let me just do that right now.
That's perfect.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's it. So let's get started. So before we really get into the presentation or the webinar, I'd just like to give a quick brief of who we are. So we are MEC Solutions. We're a Bahrain-based construction tech consultancy, and we specialize in software solutions and organization development. We've been in the market for more than 10 years, and we work in Bahrain and throughout the MENA region. In terms of what we do, in a nutshell, we basically help contractors, consultants, developers work more efficiently, become more productive, and help them ultimately save costs. In terms of our expertise, we work specifically in construction and development and oil and gas. As I mentioned, we have a few different types of softwares that we offer the market. Today, we're going to look at our BIM range, BIM quantity takeoff and cost management softwares. Other than that, we have field service management from Vortex, document management software, Crestox, a full-fledged construction ERP covering all your departments, Project View. And lastly, some free support softwares that you can actually go to our website and download today. So I'll just give you a very quick brief on this. So you've got CAD Viewer, which is a CAD reading software. You've got Rivet Viewer. Again, you can read Rivet files on your mobile, etc. PDF Converter, and lastly, Differ. This is a really powerful tool here. So basically, let's say, for instance, you've got a drawing that maybe you removed a column, you removed a wall. The software actually tells you where those edits have been made. So you can use this particular software to just pinpoint what changes have been made on these drawings. And as I mentioned, it's all free, so please visit our website today. So as you can see from this slide here, this basically looks at the full construction cycle from preparation all the way up to the use case of the building. And as you can see, our software basically fits into each of these criteria. So you've got TBQ, which is the tender management software, TAS, Takeoff for architectural structure, Takeoff for rebar, and we have a Takeoff tool for MEP. But these all integrate with obviously AutoCAD, Rivet, PDF, Excel. In terms of today's rundown, we'll first look at Cubicost and its background. Then we'll move into a very brief introduction about BIM, a few case studies, followed by a technical demonstration, Q&A session, and some closing remarks and feedback. So what is Cubicost? So Cubicost is basically a suite of quantity takeoff and estimation software that allows users to create 3D BIM models from 2D drawings, and it calculates the quantities for architectural structure, for rebar, and for MEP. Also, we have a fourth software here called TBQ. TBQ is the cost and tender management tool, and what this does, it acts as a unifying platform. So it connects all of the other takeoff software onto one common platform. Just a background about the company that created Cubicost. So it's by a Singapore-based company called Glodon. Just a bit of a background about this. So we've been in the market for over 10 years now, and for us, it's important to provide our clients with the best tech out there in terms of helping them, save costs, become more efficient, productive, etc. So we basically tested many different types of softwares before we went with this one. And the reason why we went with Cubicost are for the following reasons. One, it's one of the world's top 5 construction software providers, Glodon that is, and their team. The team for us, this was a deal breaker here. You're looking at over 7,000 employees, and 70% of them make up the research and development team. So on the software itself, that means that you're getting constant updates, at least 2 major updates each year, ensuring that the software is compatible and it's at its peak. And in terms of users, we're looking at over 1 million QSs worldwide that already use the software. In terms of strategic partners, I don't really need to introduce RICS, but you all know the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors. So Cubicost and Glodon worked very closely with RICS to develop the software. And so all of the different methods of measurements, these are all introduced into the software, but we'll look at that a bit later. We also have partnerships with the Chartered Institute of Buildings, the Construction Industry Development Board of Malaysia, PACS, etc. In terms of R&D partnerships, I guess the main partnership here is Autodesk. So Cubicost and Autodesk, they share information and to ensure that both softwares are compatible with each other, because Cubicost relies on obviously Autodesk files in order to do the takeoff. Besides that, obviously you've got the scanned PDF, vector PDFs, JPEGs, etc. But the goal is to get more quality drawings like CAD files. We also have a partnership with Microsoft, National University of Singapore, and the University of Maryland. And lastly, the software is IFC certified by Building Smart, which is the international standardization body for all IFC files. In terms of clients here, so we've got a couple of really big names: ACOM, Arcadis, actually ACOM, Hong Kong, Singapore, Malaysia, I think Cambodia, Vietnam, Philippines, all use the software, and they're one of our major sources of feedback when it comes to updating the software. We also have good, huge names like Goodrich Properties, Langland Seal, Ryder Livett Bucknell, so really a few really big names using the software. In terms of our local clients, we have the Ministry of Works, Dadabai, Dal Khalij, Algana, and this list is growing. It's growing a lot. So we hope to continue pushing this tech in the market, and getting more companies interested in this tech. So as we all know, technology is really changing the construction industry. So you've got drones, for instance, that are doing surveying, you've got building information modeling, which is what we're going to look at today, and also 3D printing. There's already been a few major projects where 3D printers are involved, either building bridges or apartments or even homes. So it's construction, technology is really pushing construction to the edge. In terms of Takeoff, we've had an evolution in terms of the takeoff methods. Moving from manual methods all the way to 2D CAD and now BIM quantity takeoff. And the reason here, what's really pushing this, is the need for to be more productive, to save costs, and just be more efficient in general. And also collaboration. Using a BIM-based software really helps to get your teams collaborated and working in terms of getting your different departments working as one unit, which is really important. So as we all know, BIM is basically a 3D digital representation of the physical and functional characteristics of a facility. And the great thing about BIM is that it connects the architects, the engineers, and the contractors, and it provides insight into helping plan, design, and build your projects for for better use cases. Manage your infrastructure and building projects. In terms of its application, it's used throughout the entire cycle of the construction phase cycle. So anywhere from detailed design, analysis, operation and maintenance, even demolition. BIM is becoming a very powerful tool in this industry. And you can see that just through the global adoption. You're looking at the US, since 2008, all public projects have been, it's been mandatory to use BIM. The UK since 2016. Germany introduced a mandatory phase for infrastructure projects, 2020. Here in Bahrain, it's predominantly used by architects, but we're helping to change that on the ground. Dubai, of course, any 40-story building should be using a BIM-based software. India, it's rapidly being adopted. Singapore, since 2010, they've made a huge push to get their entire industry using BIM. EU, of course, any EU-funded projects must use BIM, and Australia, we're seeing another push there. So the world is moving towards BIM. This slide here, I guess, is one of the most important for QSs and for estimators. Because what it does, it shows you the challenges that you face, but it also shows the solutions that the software provides. So the first one here being improving takeoff time and efficiency. So on average, you're looking at 60 to 70% quicker takeoff times using this. And here we're providing a lot of efficiency and accurate takeoff. Handling project variations, various measurement rules. So as I mentioned before, the software already has built-in methods of measurements. So let's say, for instance, you're working on a project that requires SMM7, OMI, etc. It's already there in the system. Checking results. The software has 4 unique functions that allows you to check these results and make sure that your quantities are correct. So the first one here is view expression. So once the model is completed, or even during the modeling of the model, you can click on any element within that model and it would show you exactly how the computations have been done. The height, by the width, by the length, etc. We have another feature here called reversely check. So basically, let's say, for instance, you're looking at your bill of quantities. You can click on any figure, and it would show you exactly in the model where that calculation came from, where that quantity came from, which is a really powerful tool in itself. I don't think I've seen this in any other software out there. Then we have a 3D function, which helps you to easily visualize the computations and deductions being considered, again, to ensure that you get the right quantities. And then lastly, what the software does, it really helps standardize the process of takeoff in your company, because you have many different professionals, different backgrounds, and from different companies. So there's different methods and different ways of working. So this really unifies it all and helps you work productively as a team. As I mentioned before, the software handles all different file types, IFC, DWG, PDF, scan, PDF, JPEG, even Revit files as well. Taking off difficult structures, complex structures. It calculates quantities for basically any shape you can think of, arcs, slopes, etc. You name it, it's there. And then lastly, tight deadlines for tendering, long hours to finish tenders, and frustration due to repetitive work. Introducing BIM in your company really helps, with this workflow, helps you to complete tenders on time, and you can do this. You can do your takeoff by just one click. So now we're just going to move on to the last couple of slides. We'll look at a few case studies here. So as you can see, we have a few studies here from Singapore, Indonesia, the United Kingdom, Malaysia, and this is again, mainly because the software was created in Singapore. This is where they're headquartered. So a lot of construction companies out there actually use the software, and it's basically the AutoCAD for that region. These last few slides here looks at individual cases or individual case studies where the team from Gloden actually, challenge the construction companies to see who can do a better job at a quicker rate. So with this project, Kensington Square, Singapore, using TAS and TRB, it took our team 186 hours, while it took the contractors in this instance 365 hours. So that's a 49% improvement in takeoff. For this next project here, Hong Kong Science Park expansion using TAS, TRB, and TBQ, our team did it in 60 hours, whereas the construction company took 130 hours. So that's a 54% improvement. Throughout the last few years, there's been a lot of major updates, and you can see this reflected in the actual in these actual case studies here: 65%, 60%, 66%, 72%. We've even found cases of even 80, 85%. So this, this constant upgrade of the software actually, drives us forward, and constantly taking feedback from the developers, from the contractors, from the consultants, helps us to improve the software overall. So what I'll do now, I will just pass this over to Engineer Samim for the technical demo, because I'm sure this is what we're all waiting for. Mr. Samim?
Yes, Mr. Atiba.
Okay, you can take it from here. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Atiba, for a great introduction. Hello, everyone. My name is Samim Ahmed, and I will continue the technical part of the presentation. And just to give a background of myself, so I'm a technical consultant with MECCSS Solutions. Thank you for joining us today in the webinar of 5D BIM Centralized Cost Management. My part of the presentation is technical demonstration of Cubicost software. As we know, the digital transformation of construction industry, the role of BIM is quite emerging at the moment. So when we talk about BIM, it is the foundation of all the technologies that we say, like AI, BI, autonomous construction, big data, Internet of Things, all of this. If we don't have a 3D visualized model with all the information in it or associated with it, all the other technologies are less valuable. Other technologies can still be used, but in the absence of a proper coordinated detailed 3D model, they are of less value. So in my presentation, I'm going to take you through a BIM-based centralized estimating and quantity takeoff software. So yeah, my objective with the software is to show you how efficiently and correctly you can do quantity takeoff and estimation using a BIM model. So the takeoff software, Cubicost TAS is which we are going to look at today, and is embedded with all the different calculation rules such as NRM2, SMM7, POMI, and so on. We're not going to spend much time on that, but also certainly just to give you an insight and view of how we link BIM to quantities and cost, and then cost to cost data, and which will give you a good overview of how the system works. So before I move forward to the technical demonstration, I'd just like to conduct a quick poll to understand how you currently work. So I'd really appreciate if you can just answer the polls. I would keep the polls open for 2 minutes. And here we go. So please go ahead and choose your selections.
Also, throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, you can please leave your questions in the Q&A panel. And during the Q&A session, we'll try our best to cover as many questions as we can. Okay, so we have some answers coming in now. And there should be 5 questions here, so scroll down because some of you may not see the questions at the bottom, but you can just scroll this tab down a bit in order to see the questions. Okay, so we've got about 30 seconds left. We're almost there. And thank you all for the feedback. We're getting a lot of you guys actually participating. Thank you for that. Okay, 5 seconds to go. Okay, and that's it. I guess we can end the polling right here. Okay, so I will end the polling now. Okay, so we're just sharing the poll now. So actually, okay, so we have a lot of users here. Okay, CAD files. This is actually quite typical of the market. A bit more so, I guess. Yeah, this is quite typical of the market. So with the first question here, we have 71% of you using CAD files. In terms of Takeoff, again, you know, very typical of what's going on. 83% using Excel and AutoCAD. Okay, we have a nice mix here in terms of BIM knowledge. I'm hoping, you know, we can add some benefit today and help you all in this area. But again, you know, this is very typical of the market, of the surveys we've done. Definitely, question 4, implementing BIM in your company really helps with all of the above. Some big results here. And then lastly, again, you know, these are all quite typical of what we found in other surveys and surveying other companies. So thank you so much for participating here. Mr. Samim?
Yes, Mr. Atiba. Thank you so much for sharing the results with us. All right, so without further ado, let's get right into the software. So this is TAS here, the software that we're gonna look at. And as an overview, I'm gonna begin with a quick walkthrough of the software. Then we'll look at the BIM model. And then we will get into the quantities from BIM model and proceed with my estimating software. And finally, we can get some reports out of it. So as mentioned by Mr. Atiba, obviously, you know, we will run a Q&A session at the end. So we'll enable the Q&A features in your UI screen. So you'll leave your questions there, and we will do our best to address as many questions as we can during the Q&A session. We might not be able to cover all the questions because of the time constraint, so we will respond the remaining questions by email. All right, so about the compatibility of TAS software, it supports CAD file, it supports vector PDF, scan PDF, JPEG. If you have got a BIM model, a Revit file, or an IFC file, the software supports that. Just to give you an overview of workflow, so the operation of the software is in line with quantity surveyor's workflow. So basically, when you have a CAD drawing, the software identifies all the elements from the drawing itself, and it builds up a BIM model automatically. When we have a PDF file, all we need to do is to define and trace the elements to generate the BIM model. And then if you have a BIM model already, a Revit file or an IFC file, a federated or a single model, all we need to do is just import the file, check the element scale, and then we can straightaway proceed to the quantities by one-click calculation. That was about a quick background of what we're going to look at today. So now let me proceed with the software interface. So over here, we have got different tools under each of these tabs, and we'll be using them as per our desired functionalities. On the right hand side, I have got the drawing manager. So all the 2D drawings, the CAD file, PDF, or JPEG files can be imported here. For each of these drawings, then I have got layers. To manage those layers, to turn on and off, I can use then the layer manager window right over here. On the left hand side, I have got the navigation bar. So all the elements are listed here, whichever I'm working on, that I can select and let the software identify the element for me. And then as soon as the software identifies the element, it gets listed under the element list over here. In here, and under attribute editor, you'll be able to see the properties of that particular element that is being identified by the software, and you'll be able to do adjustment, modifications, all of this stuff under the attribute editor. It's basically like the properties of elements. And then obviously the middle screen is the working space or the area, workspace area where I'll be able to build up my 3D BIM model in here. We have got 3 primary tabs. So we start with modeling, then we look at BOQ, and then we proceed with the report. Finally, I have got a status bar of software over here. So any function that we provide, that we work on, the action of that particular function can be seen here. And we have got finally an application status bar right over here. All right, so before we proceed with BIM modeling or a project, what we tend to do, we just set up a floor setting. Under floor setting, we set up the levels of each floor. So if you have got many zones or different towers or buildings in a particular project, then you can go ahead and create as many zones as you want. For each of these zones, then you can set up the floor settings, and this works exactly the same as any other spreadsheet that you work on in your daily life. So you can edit this data, you can set up the floors, then you provide the floor height. In here, you can then provide the existing ground level of your floor, and then the software automatically calculates the remaining elevation. Over here, you can provide the number of typical floors if you have got one, and then you have to choose one of the floor as the reference floor to just let the software know, okay, anything comes above it becomes substructure and below it becomes superstructure. As soon as you are done with this setup, then you can go ahead and do some grade settings for each of this floor. So on a grade setting, we are looking at different elements like foundation, blinding, concrete wall, beam, and each of them has got then different types of concrete grade. So you can choose from the list, or you can type it down. You can then choose the category of concrete, whether it's lightweight concrete, waterproof concrete, all of this. Same thing goes for formwork type, mortar grade, if you have got a mortar grade for that particular element. Similarly, then you can choose the mortar category. This particular column basically focuses on an approximate estimation of the steel. So if you've got a steel ratio against per meter cube of concrete, then you can provide that value over here. And sorry, there is someone who is in the mic. Okay. All right, so moving on. Now, you can get an approximate estimation of steel by providing the steel ratio against per meter cube of concrete in this list. Once you're set up with all of these settings, then you can copy this to other floors just by going here. I'm not going in details with that because I did that initially. All right, so that is the primary setup that we do. Then we go ahead and start doing our modeling. So in modeling part, I'm going to introduce you and quite intelligent functions, which is like basically identifying all the CAD lines and building up 3D model out of the 2D drawings. And that is over here. So we have got 3 particular functions: pick sideline, pick level, and auto identify. We're going to look at now. So let's start with an element called column. I'm going to pick sideline of column. Let's go ahead and do that. And right click for confirmation, pick level, one of the level, right click for confirmation. Third simple step is auto identify. So the software identifies all the columns right from the 2D drawings. As you can see on my screen, we have got identification of 45 numbers of columns. Let's have a look in dynamic view. So there you go, you have got all the columns in place. If I turn on my original drawing, then I'll be able to see all the lines and details of those 2D drawing. Now, you might be able to see different shapes identified by the software. You can swivel around, which is pivot, and then you can check out if everything is in place. Now, you might be wondering about the height of each of these columns. Then you should refer back to your floor setting, which is ground floor at the moment, so 3.3 meters. So each of these elements has got this 3.3 meter height. And if you are referring back to which floor you're working at the moment, so we have got ground floor over here. We can switch between any floors from this option. That is there. Let's go ahead with some of the edit functions. So if you want to edit, let's say, elevation of any of these elements. So let's say I'm gonna edit the elevation of this particular column. I just select that, and then I can go ahead with top elevation, or I can adjust the bottom elevation. So let's say, I don't know, maybe 1 meter I'm going down. So it goes 1 meter down. So all these edit functions are available within the software. Now, other than that, if you want to have a shape which is about, you know, less, let's say, sectional width or sectional height at the top, so you can adjust those as well. And what I mean by that is that you can go ahead and create one cross-sectional, variable cross-sectional column or any other elements just by putting up another value. So that takes up that. All right, so other properties function are like, you can choose the concrete grade formwork type for individual column or element. There is a specific function which is quite useful in the post-contract stages, and it's called, it's right over here. So we have got the flow zone, we have got construction zone. So you can choose basically particular elements which you want to subcontract to someone else, let's say. So in that scenario, you can then provide the subcontractor name over here, what claims he made, the payment, all of this. Then as soon as you do that, you will be able to get a full detailed category of quantities and payments and every other stuff under the quantities window. So that option is available. All right, so moving on to the PU edit options. So we have got set up sloping column. So I can go ahead and say, okay, these green color data are editable. So I can provide the angle of inclination, and I say, okay, so it takes that shape. That is there. We have got a few other options, like you can align with the slab if you have got already a slab on the top of it. So this is basically the edit functions. Now you might have noticed, as soon as I did the identification of columns, it lists out all the columns under the element list over here. So if I switch between these columns, then I get to see the properties of each one of them, the width, height, and all of this, and I can change them right from this window. That's basically about the introduction of one element, but we will proceed with other elements without much detail because all the steps are similar. So I'm going to go ahead and choose wall. So for wall, I need to then go to a floor plan or an architectural plan. So I've got an architectural plan here for this building. 3 simple steps again. So I'm going to pick up the sideline of wall, right click for confirmation. I'm going to let the software know, okay, there's a window or door opening coming up here. So consider that as well. And then 3rd simple step is auto identify. So the software will basically identify all the walls based on the 2D line. Now, obviously, the question here is, okay, so we are doing the identification based on the layers because the software, because the drawing has got layers for a particular element. But what if we don't have layers in it, or the layers are messed up? Then you still have got 2 other options. You can go ahead and just select those lines by free select, and it will automatically build up the BIM model, or you can select by color if you have got particular color for particular elements. So that is there. Now, as soon as I'm done with the columns and wall, I can then go ahead with some openings, let's say the doors and windows. When it comes to doors and windows, there is a very powerful tool, and what's so great about this is that it identifies all the text from your schedule. If you have got a schedule of doors and windows, either in Excel format or in CAD file, the software identifies from there. So all I need to do is I just need to let the software know, okay, these are my values. So I'm going to go ahead and open the schedule of doors and windows, which is right over here. I will turn off the wall and column for now, and I will say, okay, element schedule, pick up the schedule all the way down. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, until here, and sorry about that. I'll just repeat the steps again. So element schedule all the way down to here, right click. And this basically identifies all the name of doors along with its width multiplied by height, Similar thing goes for the windows. Now, you might be wondering, okay, what if I have got different schedule of, different format of schedule of doors and windows. So you still have the flexibility of choosing, width, height in different cells, all of these types, all of these settings can be done. And then as soon as you are done with this, then you can just go ahead and click identify. The software identifies all of the doors and windows and list out them under the element list. All right, so our identifications of doors and windows are done. So let's go back to our floor plan and let's see how it goes. Now, in here, I have to let the software know that these are the names or levels of doors and windows. So all I need to do is just select that and right click for confirmation and auto identify. So the software will automatically identify based on the name or level and the CAD lines that it has. So I've got the doors and windows placed in its position. Now, if I turn on my wall, if I turn on my column, all in place. Now, there could be a question, which is, okay, what if we have got a different seal level height of window? How does the software deal with that? So to answer that, I'm going to go ahead and go to window and select this window. And let's do some little setup here that we can do. This is optional, by the way. So I'm saying height above floor should be 500 instead of 900. So it goes down. And then this is like an optional edit that you still have. But then if you have got everything in your element schedule, if you have got the height above the floor, then the software identifies those data and fit in with the levels of doors and windows automatically. You don't have to literally go through and do that. Now you can see over here that the software identified exactly the CAD line and it built up the 3D model. We have got few other options here, few other elements like door, window together. We've got wall opening, ribbon window, and a lot of stuff. Dormers, lintel. So I'm gonna go ahead and just show lintel. So in lintel, we have got a really powerful tool, which is called auto arrange, and it automatically arranges the lintel. So I'm gonna create a lintel here. Sorry about that. And then I need to do a little bit of edits if I need to do, or I can stick to the default values, which is width is 200, height is this much. I've got the length at the start and the length in the end. Now I'm going to go ahead and use this tool called auto placement or auto identifications. So which gives me a window of providing the condition of what opening that I want to choose for each of these lintel. So I'm saying, okay, choose between any opening between 0 to 3 meter. You place a lintel over it. So as soon as I do that, the software basically applies that into the BIM model, and it basically creates a lintel over each of these openings. And by the way, the lintels are only on the non-concrete wall, and the software's intelligent functions basically identifies which are the non-concrete walls, and it places only on the non-concrete walls. And just to give you a recap of what we looked at before when it comes to wall. So we have got different materials. We have got brick, block, stones, all of these you can categorize. In the category, then we have got the wall partition, dry wall, wet wall, all of these different categories are there. So this will give you then, according to spec, you can then choose this, and then it will give you a separate category in the quantities table. So that's quite useful. Moving on to the next element. So we've got the BIM here. Nothing much in it. To save time, I actually did that. It's again 3 simple steps: pick sideline, pick level, and auto identify. So I did that to save time. Again for slab, again 3 simple steps: pick sideline, pick level, auto identify. In case if you are wondering about the shaft or void, then you can, if you have got a CAD line which shows, okay, there's an opening coming up here, then the software automatically identifies that. But if you don't have that, you want to create an opening somewhere, then you can just go ahead and say, okay, split something here and right click for confirmation. I'm going to delete this, so I've got an opening here. So that's really quick way of doing it when it comes to shaft or opening. Now, once we are done with the slab, then I can proceed with there is function of ramp, drop panel, or all others, and this basically works the similar way that we have been doing it. So I'm not going in detail with that because then the time will be a problem. Steel structure. So when you have a steel structure project, then you can use some of these standard shapes that are available. If I go in detail, then I have got for the column, I have got different standard shapes available here along with its codes, and you can edit these shapes diameter just by going to these edit functions, and then you can place it in its position. Similar thing goes for beam, similar thing goes for slab. So if I quickly show you the composite slab, so we have got some standard shapes available here. You can then edit the data or the dimensions, and you can place it in its position. So quite flexible there. Moving on to staircase. So in staircase, then I have got two options basically. If you have got a complex shape, then you can basically refer to the little video clip that it shows how to do it, and which is quite useful. I have got multiple options here. You can go ahead with sorry about that. You can go ahead with custom staircase or parametric staircase. In my drawing, I have got a quite simple staircase, which is just a straight flight. But nevertheless, if you want to go for a complex shape, you can just go ahead with custom staircase, whereby you'll be able to see in a window how does it look like as soon as you provide the data. And what I mean by data is, sorry about that. What I mean by data is you can turn on the railing, you can turn it off, you can provide the height of railing, all of these different settings. You can do it from here, and this is basically the custom staircase. But then you can also provide the width of light, depth of thread, all of this data here, and then you can position your staircase in your drawing. So that is how we do the staircase. But then again, the software gives you the flexibility of choosing the available standard shapes of staircase. So we have got standard double run, triple run, corner, triple run, all of these. Now, let's say if I choose one of these, then I can edit this data, which is like number of steps. In green color data are editable. So you have got the width of stair, you have got length of landing slab, how many numbers of flights are there on that side. You have got then the depth of thread, height of riser, thickness of slabs, and then you have got the beam if you want to provide the beam out here, or you can just put 0, 0, 0 if you don't have one. And once you're done with this setup, then you can just place your staircase in this position. That's quite useful. All right, so moving on to other elements, we have got the finishes here. In finishes, obviously being a QS, I can tell you that when it comes to finishes for ID, it's quite hard to get in detail, because we have got complex shapes for ceiling, suspended ceiling, and different shapes for different things. So if I go to room, we have got a specific function which is pretty much simple to doors and windows that we did before. So we have got the schedule identification, which is finish schedule. So if you have got an Excel, PDF, or a CAD file schedule, then you can just import it just like we did for doors and windows. So I did that just to save time right over here. So after I did that, I've got these different rooms, and for each of these rooms, then I've got floor finish, waterproof, skirting, wall finishes, ceiling finishes, suspended ceiling finishes. Now, if I go ahead and choose one of the rooms just to show you how it works, so I'm going to go ahead and just choose the bedroom, and I'll delete the finish, and all I need to do is just by one click, let the software know, okay, this is bedroom. So it applies all the finishes right by one click. So you have got the wall finishes placed in its position, considering the opening, obviously, and then you have got the skirting right over here. You have got the wall finishes, which consider the column sides, the soffit of beam, the side of beam, and the software basically identified, okay, yeah, there's a beam coming up at the top on the next. Hello, everyone. Can you hear us? Just let me know in the chat box so that I confirm that I'm not just talking to myself.
Can you hear us now, guys? I think we had some issues there with the internet.
Mr. Samim, there was a small people got disconnected, and we are relogging again. Just please wait.
Okay, never mind.
Because all the people lost the connection, and now we are relogging again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
And your screen also not visible. Can you reshare again?
Yes, I will do that just in a moment. Mr. Naji, can you make me host, please? If you're hearing us.
Yes, sure. Okay.
You are the host now. Okay, I got it. I will make others co-host quickly. So I've got Mr. Naji here, Mr. Ramesh, and Mr. Atiba. All right, so ready to go, I believe. Everyone's back.
Yes, it looks like, yeah.
Yeah, there are a few more attendees. You can go ahead.
No. Yeah, we got the screen now. Yeah, we got the screen. Go ahead, please.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramesh, for clarifications. All right, so back to where we lost because of technical issue. We obviously lost the connection, but we were doing the finishes in our floor. So I've got different textures that I was talking about. So you can import any textures in this particular folder, and then you can import back to your software just to assign the floor finishes, wall finishes for different ones. So as you can see, I've got few good-looking, I believe, floor finishes over there. But I can do the similar thing for wall finishes as well. I'm not going much detail on that. When it comes to waterproof, then you have got the flexibility of horizontal waterproof, vertical waterproof in any location that you want to place in, and then you will get the quantities accordingly. Now, this particular part, suspended ceiling, is quite important because we have got different shapes for that. So how do we deal with that? Now, as you can see, I've got suspended ceiling in both of these toilet areas. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just select one of the suspended ceiling, and I'll get back to 2D view, and I will just say, okay, there's a shape coming up here. I'll just take a rectangular shape, although we can go ahead with circular or any other shape. And then all I need to do is just define the height above the floor. So let's say instead of 2,700, I'm gonna go ahead and say 3 meter high for this particular part. And then I have got a gap here. So how do you then deal with the gap? Now we have got a function here, which is called define vertical surface. If I go up there and then I have got specify edge. So I'm gonna say, okay, 300 mm is the height for each of these for the vertical shape. So I'm then gonna click on those lines where I have to define that particular vertical shape. As soon as I did that, I can turn on in the 3D view, and I can see, okay, the vertical shapes have been created. Oops, on that side, I think I clicked on the wrong edge. Nevertheless, it's still the same. You have to just click on the other edge. So that is about, some functions whereby you'll be able to do some edits in the vertical shape as well. All right, so moving on to other elements quickly. So we have got fabrications. Again, it shows in a little video clip, how do you deal with that? So you can go ahead and do some prefabricated structure as well there. I'm not going in much detail of that. In foundation, I have got a foundation plan here. And if you are noticing in the drawing is a PDF drawing with no layer, no color in it. So how do we deal with this then? So let's go ahead and go to the foundation floor right over here. So I switch it back to the foundation floor. As soon as I did that, I don't have any elements in the element list. So in the drawing, you are noticing that there are some pad foundations. I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, pad foundation. So when we have a distorted PDF file in while defining any elements, be it a pad foundation or any other element. So that PDF file, if it is having any color, then we can go ahead with the identification. But if you don't have any color or any layer, it's just a scan file or distorted file, then we can go ahead with these particular options. So I can go ahead and say, okay, pad foundation, and then create one rectangular pad, and then I can assign the height, the size of that particular pad, the length, width, and height, and then I can place that particular pad foundation in its position. However, in the drawing, we can see we have got F1. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, F1, place it there, okay, in its position. F1, place it in its position. F1 right over here as well. So just quickly place it in its position. Now, if I turn on my 3D view, then I can see that all my pad foundations are in position. Similar thing goes for the rough foundation. I'm not going in detail on that. Just you can drag the line, and or if you have got a line which is identifiable, then the software will identify, or you can drag it and then position the position the raft foundation in its position. Now, when it comes to raft foundation, as soon as you did a raft foundation, you still have got few options, like you can define a slope. If you have got slope from one side to another side, you can then define few shapes like slope edges, something like this, and you can provide the the extension from the intersection point. You can then provide the height on that variable section. You can then provide height on this side, extension on that side, angle of inclination. All of these green color data are editable. As soon as you did that, then it will create that particular shape. Variable section, then again, you can choose between two parts, and you can then make it a variable section, something like this. I'm not going in much detail on that because it will be a little bit longer than what we are bound to, in terms of time. Some pits, you can define various shapes, pad foundation, strip foundation, all these foundations are there. Quickly go ahead with, just quickly go ahead with blinding. So when it comes to blinding, the software has got a really great tool by which the software automatically places the blinding below all of these foundations. So I'm gonna say, okay, in the properties, as soon as I create a blinding, the thickness of blinding is 100 milli, which is great. I'm gonna go ahead and say, okay, place all of this blinding behind my pad foundation. So all I need to do is just select the drawing, right click, and then the software asks me, okay, what is the extension that you want to provide in all four directions? So I'm saying, okay, 100 millimeter. So as soon as I press okay, the software takes that and it automatically arranges the blinding below all the pad foundations. And similar thing then goes for the raft foundations. So I'm not going in detail on that. That is about the foundation and other structure. But there is a very, very unique tool which allows us to copy all these elements to other floors in case if we don't want to do the similar thing in other floors. If we got, and in other scenario, you can have typical floors, so you don't want to work on other floor again. You can send out all of these elements to other floors as well, and we'll look at that just in a moment. So at this point, we can generate the excavation right head in that particular option. So we have got peak excavation, trench, heavy excavation. We can choose one of them. We can provide the unit's depth. We can provide the working space if you want to go for that. If you want to provide some sloping, then sloping angle, you can then provide the sloping angle as well. I'm just going ahead to a straightforward one, and I'm saying, okay, if I go ahead with manual mode, then I just have to click on individual pad foundation to create that particular excavation shape. Or if I want to go ahead with auto mode, the software will automatically arrange the excavation for all of these pad foundations as well as the raft foundation. Now you might be wondering, okay, what if I have got a sloping view, but then two slopes are actually connecting to one another? Does the software considers that? Yes, in BIM model it does consider all the deductions and stuff. And by the way, you can adjust for each of these excavation, the top elevation as well as the bottom elevation as per your existing ground level. So you might have a contour drawing, a topographical map, whereby you'll be able to see the the contours, and based on that, then you will be able to adjust both of these elevations from the attribute editor window. Now, this calculation of excavation gives us three quantities. So one, the excavation quantity, it gives us then the disposal quantity. It also gives us the backfill quantity. So you don't have to worry about doing all of these separate calculations in separate work sheet. All right, so this is about the excavation. So let me go back to my ground floor and quickly show you how do we then copy or elements to other floors. So I'm gonna turn on all my elements that I worked on. So there is my ground floor. All I need to do here is I just need to select all of them elements whichever I want to copy to other floors. I'm selecting the entire building model for this floor. I'm gonna go ahead and say, okay, copy to other floor. And then I'm going to say, okay, first, second, third, and fourth floor. Press OK. Oh, there's override coming up because I did that before. So never mind if you didn't do that. So it won't be a problem. And then you basically be able to copy all of these elements from this floor to all other floors. And then you can switch between floors right from here. And you can then do the modifications if you want to do that. If you have got typical floors, you don't have to worry about that. But then again, you will get the element in the list which has got all the different specifications, let's say for doors and windows or other elements, and you can do edits in those as well. But in case if you don't want to copy all of these elements as well as the 3D view in other floors, you can just copy the elements right from this icon, which looks like a hamburger. So you can go ahead and click on that, and you can copy these elements to other floors. So this will again reduce your work of generating another element in other floors. So that's really useful. All right, so I did the copying to other floors. Let's look at all the floors. Oh, there it is. My building is done. Let's have a quick look in my building. There it is. So I have got all the elements in its place. If I want to turn off the drawing, I can do that. I'm turning off my excavation just by shortcut keys. So shortcut keys are available for both 3D and 2D view. So all of these are there. At this point, I would quickly go ahead and just recap what we did so far, because obviously there was some disturbance and technical difficulties that we faced a few moments back. So to conclude the modeling part, I would say for the CAD and Excel user, and obviously we got a really good, good percentage of people who are using the CAD and Excel, the software goes really, really handy. And what I mean by that is that the software has got all the shortcut keys similar as AutoCAD. So EX for extend, TR for trim, L for line, all of these 2D lines, you can draw, you can do the 3D modeling using these shortcut keys, same as AutoCAD. And then also the software has got shortcut keys for each one of these elements, as you can see, against each one of them. That is about the modeling part. But then now I'm going to go ahead with calculation, and then we will look at the BOQ. So in quantity tab, I have got then the calculation options. So you can do the calculation while modeling each of these elements. Let's say you did the column, you want to do the calculation, you can go ahead and calculate, or if you want to do it floor wise, you can do that floor wise, or with the whole building, you can do the calculation as well. Before we move to the calculation, let's have a quick look at the measurement setting. So this measurement settings basically focuses on, it basically allows us to choose and check different calculation rules. And it's again from the method of measurement that we are using at the moment. So for instance, if I'm looking at wall finishes, I've got an option here, method for calculating top elevation of finish to interior wall finish. I have then got different options based on the clauses of principle of measurements for me that I chose while initiating the project, and we'll have a look at that as well. So I can choose, let's say, okay, go 50 mm high, go 100 mm high, or just stick to the original height. So I can choose from one of these. Now, because it's from method of measurements, I'm not making any changes, just sticking to the default values. Then you can export this measurement setting in a CSV format, and then you can import it back for the next project as well. In measurement rules, then it controls basically the calculation relation between two elements. And what I mean by that is, let's say the deductions, how did the deduction took place between two elements? So each one of these, then you can go ahead and check the calculation rules, and you can make changes as well. So let's say if I'm looking at, I don't know, maybe in situ slab. So in situ slab, I have got an option here, deduction for beam of PDB from volume of in situ slab. I've got different option here. If the concrete grade of the beam is similar to that of in situ slab, not deduct the beam occupied volume. If not, then deduct. So all of these different options are there. For PTB, then I have got again different types of PTB. Sorry, excuse me. I believe everything is going smooth. There is not much problem in the other side. Can someone confirm in a message, maybe in the chat box?
Yes, good going on. It's going on.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, so back to the story. So we have got these options there, but then once we are done with that, then I can, like I said, you can export, import rules that is there. So let's proceed with the calculation. In calculation, I can, like I said, floor wise, whole building, you can do all of this stuff. You can use, there's an option called cloud computing, which will basically use your company server for the calculation to make sure that it's not taking more than 10 seconds, if I say. It takes basically a few seconds, but if you don't want those seconds to be wasted, then you can use the cloud computing, which will basically use the server of different computer system in your company, and it will do the calculation really, really quick. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK, and this will basically calculate all of the elements, considering the deductions, applying all the rules from Principle of Measurements International for me that we are looking at, and it will give me the quantities in a detailed breakdown, and that will be looking at as well. Now at this point, as obviously, nowadays all the computers have got more than 4 gigs RAM memory. So there's not a question of RAM memory or the software would run well or not. So the restriction is, if it is less than 4 gigs, then it might get a little bit slower, and nothing more on that. So if I go back to my project information, just to clarify that we're using at the moment EVA Principle of Measurements International. However, you can choose whichever method of measurement that you want to use in a particular project. All right, so we are done with the calculation. Let's move forward to the view quantity. So we have got 3 options for viewing the quantity: view quantity by category, we have got view quantity, view expression. So let's go ahead with view quantity by category. I'm gonna say, okay, show me the quantities in a detailed breakdown. I've got column, wall, doors and windows, all of these different elements. So for each one of them, then I have got a detailed breakdown of quantities, starting with floor, material, concrete grade, entity type, different names. I've got then the name suffix. You have got the shapes available here, width, height, and the volume of concrete, area of formwork, how many numbers are there for that particular type. And then we have got an approximate estimation of rebar based on our steel ratio that we provided while initiating the project. We have got then the width. Now, you might be happy with these details, but then again, you would say, okay, I don't want all of these details. I want a little less than that. Then you have got the option of set classification quantity. So in here, you can then choose what you want to see on the screen or what you want to have in that. So I'm going to get rid of, let's say, category and the name suffix. Then I'm including here, okay, include the subcontractor. I want to see the subcontractor as well. So I'm saying, okay. So it adds the subcontractor here, but it got rid of the other options that I turned off. Now, if you turn off the subtotal, it gives me the subtotal of particular type of column. And then there is,
sorry to interrupt you, Samim, 1 second. Few people, they got disconnected. They could not able to log in. Somebody can help that. Is it
all right?
Possible? I don't know how to, because the people are 2 people. One Purushottam Reddy, second is Harish Pate. Is there any admit option?
I think you may be able to do it on your side, Samim.
All right, let me try it out. But I believe that the email that they received, there in the email, it's mentioned the ID as well as password. So if they use those ID and password, they'll be able to get in as well.
Sure, thank you. And one more request from audience, can you reduce little speed? I think you're going very fast. People are little bit, little slow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry about that. So I'll go a little slower because obviously the audience, they need to follow through as well. So once we are set up with this particular window, then we can save this one as template, and we can use this in another project as the template. The customized template that we have created, we can then export it into Excel. We can set up the element range just to use as a filter option, to break it down. Want to see only the column or the name of column, so you can then filter out from there. Or you have got the filter option available here as well. So you can create filter group right from here, and you can then get to see the particular filter that you applied. All right, so there is a very, very unique function which is really helpful, which is reversely checking the model, and we're going to look at that now. So if I pick up any of the quantity, let's say this one right over here, so I'm wondering, okay, this volume of concrete, from where it came. So I can then reversely check in the model by clicking on reversely check, and as soon as I do that, it takes me back to the model. So I'm going to turn on my current floor, and if I switch between these columns, then it shows me exactly from where these quantities came, which is really, really great. All right, so that option is there, which is quite flexible to check or present your calculation to your upper departments or for documentation purposes. All right, so that is about the view quantity by category. But then we have got 2 other quantity options, which is called view expression and view quantity. View quantity is quite straightforward. You just click on one of the elements and it shows you a detailed breakdown of quantity. But then we have got view expression, which is quite useful for looking at the calculation that the software did. So let's say I just picked up this wall and want to see how did the software do the calculation. So in calculation, I can then say detailed breakdown of calculation, 12.4, which is the length, 3.3, height of the floor or height of the wall. I've got then the thickness of wall, 200 mm, deduction of door, deduction of window, deduction of column, beam, the concrete lintel. Now we arrive this quantity just by using this computation by the software. Then we can have this calculation in a 3D view as well. So let's go ahead and hit on 3D deduction. and it prompts out this window whereby I am able, I can see this particular wall that I selected. Now in here, I can see, okay, this is my total area of wall. This is the original area, but then it shows me in 3D view. I can swivel around and check out as well. The reduction of door, deduction of window, deduction of all these columns, deduction of beam, and deduction of lintel as well. And this is quite useful for visually, check in later stages or present it to your client, or maybe documentation purposes. All of these different functions can be used. All right, so let's look at another 3D option available here, which is 3D measurement. So at any point of time during modeling or at the end of modeling, you'll be able to cross-check your 3D model just by doing some calculations if you would like to do that. You can go ahead and say, okay, I want to see as an example, I want to see the thickness of this wall. So I just pick up 2 lines and it shows me right over here, 200 mm thick wall. So this is also really useful for 3D measurements. All right. Now, view quantity is quite straightforward. You can just go ahead and click on any of this and it shows you exactly, what is the quantity of that particular element that it shows. You can again set the template, classification, and all of these different functions. Okay, so this is about the quantities, but then you have got the lock and unlock option, whereby you'll be able to lock certain elements or the entire model. And if somebody does some modification in your QS team, and then that doesn't affect the quantities. So which is really, really useful as a restriction. But then we have got another lock symbol for each of these 2D drawings. And how does that work is that, in certain time, if you want to look at sorry about that. Okay, so if you would like to do some edits in the 2D drawing, you can do that as well. That flexibility is there. And if you just unlock that particular drawing and you go ahead and say, okay, I want to, let's say, I want to remove this line. So I select this, sorry about that thing. I need to unlock all of them. Okay, so if I go to draw tab, here I have got 3 options and I can select these lines and I can say, okay, delete. So I can do all of these edits. I can then draw simple lines just by draw cat line. So let's say I want to draw a column side line, if I would like to do that. I can just go ahead and draw the lines as well. So 2D functions are available as well. And this is really useful when you have got multiple, towers standing face to face. Then you have got different, obviously in the master plan, it shows you the face-to-face thing. But then in separate drawings, you are still stuck with, rotating the drawing. So what you can do is you can use these 2D functions and you can rotate the 2D drawing and make it face-to-face or whatever angle that you would like to do based on your project. Okay, so this is about the modeling, calculation, and all the stuff that we looked at. So just to recap, or just to round the talk off, we have built up the BIM model, we ran the calculation, we looked at the quantities. With this, I think I would like to just conclude the first part of the presentation, and we will have a 5 minutes break now. If you guys want to grab a coffee or something, you can go ahead with that. And see you at 3:15.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In the right time, 4:15. Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Yeah, I believe everyone's here, so I'm ready to go.
Can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
It's clear, Samim. Yeah, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so in this part of presentation, I will introduce my estimating and tender management software using both the contractor and consultant version of the software. So as an overview, the cost estimation software TBQ works as a centralized platform. So it sits on your server of your office, or it can sit individually in your PC, like mine, if you are a single user. The purpose of having it run from a server is so that we can have all the data and all the projects held in the central place. So what I can see here is a list of projects that I'm working on at the moment. Right. What we enable through having it on a server is a full granular security. So what's important to notice is that when we have what we call as user management, which is right over here. So as soon as I go there, then I have got administrator, which could be the contract manager or a senior quantity surveyor. And under him, then he can add as many QSs as he wants. And then he can name those quantity surveyors in his team. And then he can control all of these different permissions, like whether the quantity surveyor should read and write all the projects. They can use the resource library, BQ library, all of these different options can be enabled right from this window. That is about user manager, which is quite useful for the security. And then you have got the version, so you'll be able to switch between the consultant and contractor version. That option is there. Now on the left-hand side, I can create a new project. I can import a project which I worked on before, and then few other save, close options are there. In the options, however, you have got then the setting of this particular software, where you have got the trade setting. So you can import any trades that you want. You can import a list of trades right here. You can add as many trades as you want, and then you can provide particular code for these trades to be used against par bill items. Now then you have got the unit setting here. You can choose and add more. Similar thing goes for element. So you can choose as many elements that you want to add, or you want to delete some of these. You can set up that. Shortcut keys are there, display setting, and some other functions. Now this is quite useful when you want to do the cost analysis in the software itself. So back to the main interface. So in here we have got one primary tab called projects, but then I have got another tab called library. So let's go ahead and hit library. So in library I have got resource library, whereby you can set up your company resource library. It's asking me to switch, which is okay. So you can set up basically a library, something similar to this, whereby you have got the raw material, labor, equipment, composite material, all of these different with their codes. And then you can work out your unit rate in the library itself, and you can add as many subcategories as you want. For instance, reinforcement, formwork, brickwork, blockwork, all of these different categories. Once you are done with that, then you can actually use this rate library while pricing your jobs or individual bill items. And then you can import from the project. If you want to set up a resource library, you can import from a previous project as well. If you have got in your database of your company, you can do a few other options, import, export options. Then you have got the filter options available here, whereby you can set the precision of each of these, or you can filter out what you want to look at. So that is the setup of resource library, which is quite useful while pricing. I'm going to go back to the library again, and I have got a BQ library or cost plan template library. So if I go to here, then I get to see a detailed list of categories and subcategories of different elements and trades. So for each one of them, then you have got a beautiful setup, and you can build up your cost plan if you're a consulting company right ahead just by going to this library. Now this setup is quite flexible. If you want to add up more, so category, subcategory, you can add up headline, item number, all of these different settings are there. You can import again from projects as well. Right, so moving back to my projects now. Okay. So I'll turn on one of the projects that I'm working on at the moment. So let's go ahead with contractor demo. Okay, just to make sure that I'm in the contractor. Yeah, so at the moment I'm in contractor version. So what I can see here is that I actually just imported an Excel BOQ just to work on. Let's say it came out from the client or consulting company. Then I have got different elements here, and for under each of these elements, then I have got all the items listed here. So this is just like a typical bill of quants that we have. What I'm going to do here is that I'm going to link the quantities with my Takeoff software. And how do I do that? So let's get back to the TAS software. So we did the calculation, we did everything here. Let's go ahead and look at the BOQ tab, what we got here. So in here, in BOQ tab, you can either customize a BOQ by going ahead with new bill, new element, heading, subheading, note, and all of this stuff. But then also you have got option of importing a cost plan or an Excel BOQ. If you have got one in your company, you can then import that as well. You can then link this particular project with TBQ, which is this pricing or estimation software that we are looking at. So I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, this was an imported BOQ, but I want to go ahead with linking the TBQ project. So as soon as I click that, pretty much straightforward, I've got the security over here. So log into your TBQ project. I'm going to say, okay, my password, just to type in here, right? And then you can look at your company server right from here. But obviously, I'm just a single user, so I've got my laptop over there. And then I'm going to go ahead and say login. So what it will do is basically it will connect both the softwares, the Takeoff software and the cost estimation software together. So anything that we do will be back and forth, all interconnected in real time. And that we're going to look at just now. So contractors demo that we are looking at now. So I'm going to double click on that project. Okay. So as you can see, it's loading the BQ table data here. And this specifically means that I have got a mirror of what we can see here in the TAS software. So everything is connected at the moment. Now, if I go to, let's say, one of these element as concrete works, so I've got different wall thicknesses here. Just as an example, I'm picking up this item, bill item, which is quite not matching with my project, but just to show you as an example. So 750 mm thick wall, and I will link some quantities here. Now you might be wondering about the edit functions in both the softwares, because if somebody is working in one software, then another person is working on the same bill item or same element, then it contradicts. So how do we deal with that? Now you have got this checkout option here. So if you click on that, then basically it takes away the edit function from the TAS software. So basically the person who is using TAS, he won't be able to edit that particular element anymore. Similar thing goes again back to this. If you turn off there or check out from there, then it locks here. Okay, so I'm just going to say check out just to edit there. Now, what I'll do, I'll just connect some of the quantities from my model. And to do that, I just go to view quantity by category right over here. And I'm going to bring up my quantities here. And I'm saying, okay, wall. Ideally, we do this over 2 screens, but it's not quite presentation friendly. So bear with me on that. So I've got walls here. Then I can, just filter out my 200 mm thick wall or whatever I want. But just to, reduce the time consumption, I'm just going to go ahead and say, okay, the total volume is the quantity that should be placed here, just as an example. So I can drag and drop, or I can just double click. So I'm going to drag and drop. So it takes that quantity right there. But then I'm saying, okay, the next quantity is, I don't know, maybe I'll pick up this one. So I double click on that. Sorry about that. I will go here and I'll say double click on that, and it takes that particular quantity back here. I will just quickly do some others, maybe here. Okay. And then I'm saying, okay, this volume, associate this again here. Now, if I turn on my association status, then I get to see, okay, one cell turned in blue and then others are in green color. And this is really, really useful when you are linking quantities from your quantity Takeoff Excel spreadsheet and to the bill of quants. So what happens is that anything that you missed out you'll be able to figure out, okay, in white color that cell will show that, okay, that item of quantity is missed out. So that's really useful. So you can connect this. If you repeatedly associate, it turns into blue. And then again, you can reversely check right from this place to the model. So which is quite useful. If you are confusing about any quantity, just go ahead and click on that, reversely check in the model. It takes you back to the model, shows you exactly from where the quantities came out. Okay, so if I switches between these quantities, then I get to see that the description, calculation, quantity, expression, the expression descriptions, and the factor, everything is in details. Obviously, I just linked one quantities or two quantities. If we do multiple, then the list will go on and on. The factor is allowed here is because sometimes as a quantity surveyor, we try to we have a practice of linking one quantity in multiple items. So in that time, we can then apply some factors in it, and then we can connect this to another item as well. All right, so this is basically about the details of quantities. But then once we are done with linking the quantities, then I can go ahead and say, okay, save this or send this data to my estimation software. Let's get back to here. So as soon as I save that, as you can see, the quantities got reflected here. So if I go back here, I say I have got 460.255, right here as well 460, which is just the round figure, but we can turn on the precision right from here. If you go there, then we can do that as well. Not much bothering on that. So you might be wondering, okay, how do I then get to know, okay, this quantity from where it's coming? So I have got the option called quantity details. If I go there, then it shows me that in task quantity, this particular quantity was uploaded by me, which is my email ID right over here, on which date, on today's date, and on which time, at what time. So everything is in detail. So which makes it quite quite auditable, in other words. And you have got then the project name, from which projects the quantities are coming out in task. You have got then the quantities, and that quantities breakdown is over here. So you've got the volume. If any factor was being applied to that quantity, you'll be able to see right over here. We can switch between these and we can check that out. Now, we still have few other options for quantities. So you can manually work out some quantities, and which can be, I just did a little quantities here, and it works out exactly same as spreadsheet. So you can apply formulas like QL, multiplication, and all of these formulas you can apply in each of these cells. The software has got already the formula fitting here, and you get the quantities right over here. And this is quite useful for, like I said, landscaping work or something. So as soon as you are done with the quantity, then you can just press link, and it links that quantity back to the BOQ. If you want to work out, if you want to connect some of the quantities from TRB, which is the rebar software, we'll look at that in some other session. You can link that quantity similar as task, and you'll get the details over here. We still have the flexibility of the Excel users. So if you have got an Excel spreadsheet where you worked out your quantities, you can get those quantities into the software, and you can go ahead with the pricing and stuff right from here. So if you go these options, it says, if you go to this option, it says get data from Excel. So you can go ahead and click on that, and it will basically prompt out in the window of finding the Excel quantities right over here. So I selected that, and I got this quantity right over here. This is my worksheet that I worked on in Excel. And what we can do here is I can just double click or drag and drop the quantity that I want to assign. So let's say, as an example, this volume is here. Okay, so if you have noticed in each of these cells, then we have got a green color icon in the corner of it. So we have got green color icons for tasks, which basically indicates the quantities are coming out from task software, and then represents that the quantities are coming from the manual calculation, but then the dark green color shows that the quantities are coming out from Excel. But in case if we connect some of the TRB quantity, it will show me in some other color. I think it's, yeah, in blue color. Sorry about that. Okay, so the quantities, as soon as we are done with that, then I'm gonna say, okay, check in, and it will reflect these quantities to my Takeoff software as well. Okay, so we got this. Now, we're going to move ahead with a particular function which is called, identification of PDF. And I'll give you a scenario. So in Middle East, we tend to get, I'm not sure if it is a common practice all around the world, but in Middle East particularly, we tend to get scan PDF BQ from client or from consulting company. So what we do is sometimes it takes a lot of time to convert those files or work around with that. So to get off all of these hassles, I have got the options of identification of PDF BQ. So I can import a BQ. I can go ahead and say, okay, import a scan BQ, which can be just a simple typical bill of quantities just like this, and it's a scan file at the moment. So I have the option of choosing which pages that I want to import or the total bill. So I'm saying, okay, the total bill, and press identify. Now, what the software will do here is that it will identify all this text, and based on this text, then it will identify, okay, the description should be under this particular headline, unit should be under this, and all of these different text. And we still have got flexibility of choosing which cell should be what in at later stage as well. I mean, we can do it manually as well if you are not satisfied with the identification of the software. So that option is there as well. Now, as soon as we are done with this one, then we can go ahead and import an addendum PDF, because obviously we're getting the BQ from the client as PDF file, and we're expecting another addendum PDF. So then you can import that addendum, and the software will show you exactly based on the item serial number or item number where are the addendums or changes been made. So it will show you, for instance, item number A, it will show you in bracket addendum A or addendum 1, addendum 2. So it matches the text automatically, it arranges automatically, and then you can refer back in future stages in which addendum the changes have been made. So it's quite useful. Okay, so we're done with the identification of a scan PDF BQ. As I mentioned before, as soon as the identification is done, you will be able to see a electronic, more or less like a spreadsheet of the scan PDF over here. So if you switch between the text, it shows you in the scan PDF as well via the text. Now, you might be noticing here the words, some of the words are not quite correct. So drawings, the software didn't identify as drawing. And to be honest, I would say this will not affect in our calculation or anything, because this is just as our reference. Okay, these texts are for our reference. So we work out the quantity, we work out the rate, amount, everything. But then all of these data will be then fit into the original BQ that we imported, the scan PDF BQ. So let's say I'm working out here and I'm saying, okay, the net rate is somewhat, I don't know, maybe 100. So it takes immediately the 100 over here. I can adjust this text, place it in this position if I want to do that for each of this text. And we will look at the fonts of each of these text and different settings later on in the report. So that is there. Now at this point, then you will be also able to work out the rates from different built-up unit rates and the rate library, and it will get reflected automatically into that format. But obviously, it's quite friendly, operation friendly. If you wanna have two screens, if you have got two screens, so you can take this screen to another screen, and you can do a lot of options. You still have the flexibility of doing that. Okay, so that is there. Now let's go ahead with one of the build that we have been working on to our project. Okay, so I'm gonna close this. By the way, okay. So what we tend to do when we link the quantities to the model is that as soon as we do that, then obviously we'll go ahead with the rate, with the pricing and stuff. But then if I do that, and then if I make any changes, how does that affect? So we'll look at that. Now I can just choose a rate code from the resource library, and it will apply all the rates all over the other columns. But then I can also go ahead and say, okay, what are the type of rates that I want to choose against each of these bill items? So this bill item, is it a rate only fixed amount? I can choose from these options, different price types. And then I can go ahead and say, okay, I want to do the pricing. So I have got the pricing option, which is available in the built up unit rates. So using the built-up unit rates, I'll be able to then price my jobs right from here. So this particular interface, as you can see, you can import some data from resource library. You can then identify in Excel unit rates or unit rates that is available with you in your company. So you can identify that, and it will just give you a particular breakdown like this. There is a price analysis option, which is like, if you worked on multiple projects using the software, and then you can do the price analysis based on your resource library, and it will show you how did the fluctuation of rates happen throughout the time or based on the location. So you can turn on the location, you can turn on the projects wise, monthly, yearly, you'll be able to see all of these different things. But obviously, I'm just working in one project, so I don't have the flexibility of doing that. But I'll get a beautiful graph over there to show how did the fluctuation took place. All right, few tool for filter options, and this is what it is. Now, similar thing that I explained in the resource library, we have got subcategory for unit rates, and then you can go on by adding items. And for each of these items, then you have got a codes for the labor, for equipments, for materials. Now, in here, as soon as you apply the code, which will pick up from the labor, let's say, and it will apply to the unit rate. You can do that way. So you can build up the labor, and then you can just apply right here. So let's consider in one of these labors. So if I click on this particular icon, it gives me then option of which labor price that I want to choose. So I have got different suppliers or different brands. I can put in that this setting can be done in the labor option, and then I can choose which one I want to go for. As soon as I choose that, it automatically applies all of the in that particular unit rates. All right, so that is about how do we assign labor rate, equipment, raw materials, equipment, and stuff. Now at this point, you can then under material, you can use the wastage, unit quantity, obviously base factors. You want to go for that. You have got the factor to adjust the rate. Maybe your rate is not matching with the market rate, or you have worked out something else, but in market it's available in other way. So you can multiply, divide. You can do all of this stuff. This works similar as any other spreadsheet. So you can adjust the rate here. Similar thing goes for labor, equipment. You have got then the total adjustment here, and then you have got the profit overhead percentage, and then direct value here, and it automatically links. And then you have got the net rate. You can also assign the other options like brand, supplier, state, and stuff. All right. So once you are worked out with this one, then you can go to detail as well. So if you let's say go to one of these and that you want to work out some of these things, and you can say, okay, take me to another window. So you will have another window, and side by side you will be working on the BOQ as well as your rate library all together. So let's try to price some of the bill items. So in here I can do the pricing just by double clicking on and taking the rate codes, or I can just type in the rates. That flexibility is there. But then I have got few other options, which is one that I can just create a new rate new unit rate, and then I can apply the code, and it will take up that labor or material or whatever I selected based on the code. So I can provide the description, I can build up a beautiful breakdown here, and then I can assign this one to the particular cell. But then also I have got an option of import from the built up. So I can import from the built up that I already set up before, and then I can add this setup into the built up as well right from here. If you think that, okay, this will be useful for future projects, so you can just send it out from here. Now, as soon as I click on import build up, it basically prompts out this window, and then I can just drag and drop the unit codes to apply the rates. So what I mean by that is, let's say for this particular wall, I need a concrete rate of 15 maybe. Sorry about that, 15 right over here. Okay, so I can just drag and drop. Please adopt a unit rate by selecting instead of child nodes. Oh, okay, so I was picking up the wrong thing. I have to just pick up the main original code for that particular unit rate that I worked out. This unit rate here, I'm just setting up a few of them just to show you how it works. All right, so I added up some of the rates, and then I will say, okay, some of the rates I'm just typing in, or I'm choosing from the library, and then some of them I'm just typing in, let's say, 100, I don't know. Okay, so some of the bill items that we worked out, just like this as a manual one, and then I worked out this one. Now there's a specific function by which you can actually interlink one quantity to different cells, and then you can cross-reference between where the quantities are being linked. And what I mean by that is you can apply formula here. So let's say I want to say I would like to get 10% of this particular item. So I would say multiply 10, sorry, about 10%, 10%, and then I'm saying yes. So it takes the 10% of that particular quantity that I worked out previously. So this is quite useful if you want to work out just as a spreadsheet. You know, you can apply different formulas, positive, negative, equal, everything works here. Now, if I want to check, and this is quite useful when you want to do the ending on for extra over items, which is like from the original bill item, you've got an extra over some percentage that I want to add in. So you can then do it in this way. If you click on view precedent and dependent, then it shows me exactly from where the quantities came or where the quantities have been linked. So I can say that, okay, in here it shows me, okay, it connected with this bill item called description with this quantity expression, and this is the quantity that worked out after linking to this one. So it's really useful when you want to link out a lot of quantities. Now, getting back to the rate, so we applied the rate, and as soon as we did that, we can have a quick look at the breakdown of rates. So we have got the material, labor, equipment, and others for each one of these unit rates in detail. But then I have got the net amount worked out pretty much well. I can do the markup ratio here. I can just type in for against each of these items. Then I can provide the rate directly. And then this is the total amount that has been worked out after applying all of these rates for this particular item. But we can do adjustment to this markup amount as well. At a later stage, I'll show that. So that is about the pricing. Now, if I would go back to my previous software, which is this, I need to just save this or let the data go through the server. And then I say, for this particular one, check out, okay? And I say check in. Yeah, there it is. So as soon as I checked in, that gives me basically access to this particular element in here. So I've got all the quantities listed here, which I worked out in that software. I'll just reduce this window size so that we can have a better look. All right, so at this point, I can basically do some variation. Let's say there's a variation happening in this in the project. So how do we deal with that? All we need to do is just go to analysis, and I have got an interim version option here. So I'm going to select this, and I'm saying, okay, interim version, set this one as an interim version. And what is the meaning of interim version is that I am basically saving the worked out data for this project at this point, just as a snap of what I worked. So I'm just going to call it as, let's say, version number 2. Okay, so this is my version number 2. It will get saved here. But then on the next day, as an example, let's say I worked on Monday, and then on Tuesday, I want to get some data from previous work from yesterday. Then I can go ahead and say, okay, get data from other versions right from here. So I'll be able to get data from my previous version that I saved you. Okay, so now let's get back to the Takeoff software task. I have got this quantity worked out from the model. So I will do the similar thing here. I will set this one as a baseline, which is basically, again, another version. Save as baseline, and I'm saying version number 2. Okay, so as soon as I do that, then the software saves this one as a baseline or version number 1, or sorry, version number 2. And then if I go back to my model at the moment, and I say, okay, there are some modifications being made in the ground floor that we're working on. The client doesn't want this wall to be here. So I'm saying, okay, delete this wall, delete this wall. There are some modification or changes been made in the project. So all I need to do is, after that, I just have to press calculate to run the calculation for this particular floor. And this will basically affect all the quantities throughout the linking BOQ, linking quantities until the cost analysis. So now if I get back to my BOQ to see the changes, I can see my baseline quantity, which I previously worked out, was 460.255, dropped down to 455.619. So in real time, it gets updated. So this particular spreadsheet will then be my version 1 or variation 1, and then I can go ahead and do some modification for version 2 and 3 and so on. Now let's get back to the other software. Before that, I'll just say, okay, check in to save this work, and it will basically send out the work there, and I have got access here then. So now I will save this particular work that has been updated as interim version 3 maybe. So interim version 3 here. So about that, it is version, okay. So version 3. So this will then save this one as version 3, but then I can go ahead and say, okay, compare between two versions. So I'm selecting version 2, I'm selecting version 3, and say compare. Excuse me. So the software will basically compare between two versions, and it will give me a result in a very detailed way. What are the changes being made based on the text or the changes which are there in two of these versions. So over here, you can see it shows me in star mark, okay, for this project, for this bill, for this element, for this particular, I will go to concrete works. For this particular items, I have got changes over here. So I have got headline, all the way to the bill items. It shows me in star mark what are the changes being made. Now, if I want to check out the changes, then I can check out by going to each of these cells. So I've got the quantity which are being changed from 460 to 456. We have then got the net amount which are being changed all the way to the total amount of that particular bill item. So you just made some changes in the model, and you just press calculate, and it took all the data all the way to here until the total project cost. So you don't have to go through each of the spreadsheet and update based on the changes being made in the model. So it's all interconnected, centralized, automatic update in real time. All right, so that's about the comparison between versions. So you can do that between maybe if you're a consultant, between the PTE and your contractor versions and stuff like this. So you can do a lot of comparison there. Now, that's about the analysis of comparison. But then I have got some other analysis which are cost adjustments. So this is the total cost of my project at the moment. I can then adjust the markup ratio. I can adjust the total markup directly by putting in the value here, and that will basically distribute each of this markup amount to each items that we have in the bill of quants. So that's quite flexible. Then I can go ahead and say, okay, let's do some trade analysis. So in trade analysis, it shows you in detail where you applied the, I exploded that, but I'll just get it back here. Now, you might be noticing in here, I have got some trade codes. And what I did here is that I just, to save time, I just assigned the trade codes just from the drop down. And these trade codes are coming out from the initial setting in the software setting that we did. So we have got a library there, in other words, if you like. So I can choose those trade codes, and it will basically work out the total quantity, the total amount, markup amount, and what is the weightage at the moment in the project. Obviously, I've got 100% because I didn't work out much items, but then I have got cost per floor area. So I just have to provide the square meter floor area here, and it will work out the cost in here. You can export this again into Excel. Similar thing goes for element. So you have got element-wise detailed cost breakdown, and again, square meter gross floor area, if you just put in here and press refresh. All right, so that was about the analysis that we can do. And then we have got the subcontract. If you are a contracting company, then you can add the subcontractor here. You can refer back to your bill item just from this tab, and you can then assign the subcontract by creating that. You can, as soon as you worked out the subcontractors, then you can just send the inquiry through a e-tender platform right from here. And then you can receive the quotation as well through a e-tender platform. And we'll get a little bit introduction into e-tender at the end of the session. And that's about basically in the contractor parts. And just to cover up on the other areas, whereby if you bring up an addendum, then you'll be able to match pages or match element codes, whereby the software will basically update all of these addendums by name. I'm not going much in detail on that because then it will take a lot of time. To conclude the modeling part and the estimation part, I came across all the way to the rates, but then I'm going to go ahead with the consulting version, because until now we were looking at the contractor version. So let me go back to the consultant version. So I will go back here and I'm saying, okay, close this project. Okay, so it's closed. Now I can switch between versions. So I'm saying, okay, let's go ahead with the consultant version. So in consultant version, and let's work out in the same project because we don't want any differences, or we're familiar with the bill of quantities, in other words, if you like. So that goes along. This bill that we have been working on that particular element. Now, what I can do in consultant versions, so the build up cost plan, I have different options available for building up a cost plan. I can identify a previous PDF, identify an Excel, export to Excel. Obviously, after working out this one, you can then get data from previous projects, which could be your historical type-wise project. Let's say I'm working in residential buildings, so you can actually, while setting up the project, you can choose which type you're working on. So if it's a residential project, you get to see the residential project list, and then you can get data from your historical projects. You can then get data from other versions that you worked on. You can get from the BQ library that you have got, and you can get data from Excel that we looked at in the contractor version as well. Now, in here, if you go to bill drop down, then you have got the flexibility of creating the preliminaries. You have got then the prime cost and provisional sum. And for each one of them, then obviously the format or the working out is different than the normal bills. So how do you deal with that? So we have got the heading, we have got subheading, we have got item, and then for bill item, I can then say breakdown. So in PC and provisional sums, I can then have the breakdown. And if I get into the window of breakdown, I'll be able to provide the percentage and other data over here, and it will automatically update that in the breakdown here. Obviously, we can provide the heading, subheading, and bill item names there. So that's about how flexible way we can build up a cost plan using the software if we are a consultant or a client company. All right, so this is pretty much of building up a cost plan. But then if you go to analysis, we have got a similar thing. If you go to evaluate, here's the thing that is quite useful once you are done with your bill of funds or the tender document. So as soon as you're done with this, then you can go ahead and say, okay, publish my tender document right from here. And if you publish that, then you can, still you can undo that publication, but then you will get to do the addendum versions right ahead of publication. So as soon as you publish it, it will go through the e-tender platform. We'll look at that as well, and to the selected contractor, and that has got password protection both in your side, in his side, all the way. It's all protected. So we will get into the security issues as well at the end of this. Nothing much on that. Then you have got comparison, just like before that we looked at. So pretty much similar. I'm going to go ahead and look at the reports then. So if I go to report, right, that refreshes. Now here I have got different bill of funds or elements that we worked out. You have got then the summary, BQ, different tabs. Now what we tend to do is we basically set up everything here, because obviously we're a consultant, so I can edit this report. I can set up the layout, page margins and stuff like that. I can then choose the fonts of text, and these fonts are basically connected with your MS Word in your PC. So any font that you have got in your MS Excel will be listed out here. So you want to add any other fonts, you can add there in the MS Word, and it will get reflected here as well. So all these different settings are there. And then we have got the format setting. You can format the bill number, element number. How do you want to look at it? So you have got the flexibility of that as well. You have got some general settings whereby you'll be able to set the page numbers and stuff like that. And then as soon as you are done with that, you say, okay, save my work. And then I'm going to go ahead and either print it, or I can do some more modifications. Let's say if I do the modification of page numbers, I can choose from what I want in the page number, bill number / element number in this format or something else. So I can set up that here. Collection page, collection summary page, what I want to say, I can set up that from here. Now, if you want to push some of these items to the other page by page break, you can do that as well. Going to that, I'm not going in much detail on that, just you have to click on that particular line that you want. And then you have got upload. So in upload, you are basically uploading a template of work that you did as a report. And for the future projects, then you can use from the manager the same template. If you go ahead with publication from here, it will take you to the tender. Sorry about that, I have to still work on that. Now it will take you to the eTender platform, whereby it will save the project as a BQD format with password protection. And BQD is basically the BQ electronic tender documents. Now, the contractor on the other side can price his BQ and do the same tender submission in BQS file. And that file is again protected by password, which is shared by you. And all this back and forth work, or all this transition happens through the eTender platform. So eTender has got a lot of different tools. We're not really covering up in this session, but in future we'll look at that. It basically gives you a lot of options, like even you can evaluate if you're a consulting company. So you got a lot of quotations, and then you can evaluate between them using different filter options. Different options are there. So a lot of stuff in eTender platform, in other words, if you like. Now, what I'm going to show here is that if you do the publication, then you'll get access to the addendums. All right, and that will then create addendum version 1, version 2, and 3. And on the other side, the contractor will just import that addendum 1 or 2, and it will automatically reflect in his bill of quants that he has been working on. So this is quite bringing me to the final part of my presentation. I'm going to wind up soon. So I have got this particular setup for reports. But before we conclude, let's have a quick look at the reports in my Takeoff software TAS. So what kind of reports that we can get from TAS software. All right, now let's get back to the report tab here. And then I have got some standard format of reports available in this TAS software. I can then edit them just by going to that. And then I can also create a new reports if I would like to go for that. I can get, again, the summary of each element or elements, and then I can get a detailed computation expression of the calculation rules that's been applied for each of the elements in a detailed report format. And then I can also do some index analysis for different elements. So for instance, if I go to worksheet with expressions, then it gives me a detailed breakdown of how did the volume of, let's say, column 1 took place. And this is the detailed calculation that you can produce in report format. Now you can set some filters from here as well. You can set some quantity right from here that is similar as the set quantity by category that we looked at before. You can then export this one into Excel. You can print it out right from here. So quite flexible options are available for report for TAS software. I believe this brings me to the end of my technical presentation of Cubicost TAS software and as well as TBQ software. I really appreciate your presence. And yeah, so as you know, we have another powerful software, which is TRB, and for rebar, and then for MEP, we have got PME. So if you want us to cover this in another session, you can maybe send us an email with inquiries, or we'll cover up in another session the TME and TRB software, as well as the eTender platform. that is there. So I think, yeah, this is it from my side. So we'll open the floor for question answer session now. And Mr. Atiba, can you tell us some questions maybe from the audience?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Samim. Thank you all. So we've got a first question here from Rana. I'm not quite certain what you're trying to ask here, but it seems to be regarding the methods of measurements. Let me see. We just have a chat right here. Maybe we can get the mic on for Rana. Hold on 1 second. Okay, actually.
Okay, Mr. Atiba, if
okay, but it seems to deal with different methods of measurement. The software, Mr. Samim, can you just go into the methods of measurement and what's actually available?
All right, yeah, that's really a great question from Mr. Rana. Yeah. Okay, so we have got a setting like I showed this over here, method rules, but then you have the flexibility of choosing which method of measurement that you want to use in your quantity takeoff software. So what I will do, I will go back to my start and I'll close this project just to show you how it works. And what we do is when we initiate a project, we get to see the project name. So that I can set up, and then I can choose from the drop down which method of measurement that I can choose. I want to use. But obviously, in my tool or my module, I've got just before me. But you can have Indian standard, you can have American standards, you can have Filipino. All of these different rules of measurements are available for different countries, different locations throughout the world. In case if that doesn't answer your question, I would be happy to send you the list of method of measurements that we have in your email after this webinar. So that will clarify what's happening there. But basically, we have got a lot of method of measurements available in the software itself. Right. I hope that answers Mr. Rana's question.
Actually, if you don't mind, Mr. Samim, I can probably go through a few here. So we've got the measurements for Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, the UK, Indonesia, India, Vietnam, Taiwan, UAE, Philippines, Sweden, New Zealand, Australia. So it pretty much covers every single region in terms of methods of measurement. We have a second. Sorry.
That's really great.
Yeah, we have a second question here from Mr. Jack. Is there any function of generating a shaft or chute inside the building?
Okay, if I understand correctly, Mr. Jack is asking if I can make an opening or create a shaft in the model. Yes, we do have an option for that. So if I go back to my slab and then I want to create any shape of shaft anywhere, or as simple as a garbage chute or something. So I can go ahead and choose which shape that I want. So let's say I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, circular shape. So split and then circle, and then I'm going to create a circle here. And this basically, split these two elements, and I can just delete it, and I got a really good opening here. And this can be applied to all other floors. But if you have got a line for that, the software automatically identifies from there. So that is how we do the shaft or opening. And I hope that answers your question, Mr. Jack. I think
we've got a question here. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I think we have time for a couple of more questions. Yeah.
So we have a question here from Habib asking, is there any option of calculating the rebars if the schedule is provided to avoid estimating steel ratio that might lead to errors? I'm not sure how much time we have now, Mr. Samim. Maybe, well, what do you want to do? We can maybe show the next software, or we can probably leave it for another time.
Well, that will take a huge amount of time. I would prefer, taking the other software to another time, because rebar software, the rebar software gives a detailed breakdown of your calculation, and it has got the British standard, American standard, and different rules are already embedded in the rebar calculation already there. And then you get to select which formula that you are applying for, let's say as simple as bands or hooks and some other stuff. Now that gives you a detailed calculation of the bar bending schedule, and it gives you the cranks and all of this stuff, and it gives you the bar shape, by the way. So you can get a report of bar bending schedule just right from the TRB software. And again, it has got a lot of other functions that we'll be covering, I think, sometimes later. Thank you.
Okay, so the next question here relates to reinforcement. How can we calculate exact quantity of reinforcement? Again, touching on that previous question from AJ.
Okay, so it's pretty much similar question. So what I'm trying to say is that you can get an approximate estimation of still quantity, right? If you really want to do that, so you can go ahead with still ratio. But if you want to get a detailed breakdown of reinforcement, then I would recommend to go for the TRB software, which we'll be looking at sometimes later, like I said, and that will give you a detailed quantity of rebar. Thank you.
So the next question here relates to the interoperability of the software. So Mohammed asks, can we import Tekla model and Navisworks to Takeoff?
Well, okay, so when it comes to importing a BIM model, we have got import IFC file. That is basically the shareable file between two BIM softwares, as we know. But then we have also option for Revit file, .rbd file, and that Revit BIM model can be imported if you go for another extra module. So that is in another premium package. It's not available with my software at the moment. So in that one, you'll be able to basically import the Revit model with all the finishes, everything in it, landscape, whatever is there. Either it's a centralized model or it's just a single model, so you can do that. And then you will be able to edit that Revit model. And as far as I know, this is the only software in the market at the moment which can import a Revit model and then do edits on that particular Revit model. So it's quite flexible. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Okay, so going back to the topic of excavation, is it possible to calculate the excavation slope angle according to the soil type?
To the soil type, yeah. According to soil type, okay. Well, okay, so we can deal with that. So if you have got the excavation quantity, this will break it down to, let me go back to the proper floor. Okay, so foundation floor right here. Now, if I go to my excavation, which I've got here, the excavation, I believe, yeah. So as soon as I calculate the excavation, you will get to, like I said, you'll get the disposal amount, you'll get all the amounts based on what you are doing, based on the excavation quantities. But then if you want to categorize it based on your different materials, then you need to basically do it manually. And what I mean by that is you need to basically apply the elevation of each of these excavation based on your control levels or based on your material type in that particular artwork. So little extra step, you have to adjust the ground floor elevation here, which is the existing ground level, and then you can place in each of these particular shape or excavation type in different places based on your control levels, and you can adjust the top, bottom elevations, and basically you have to do it kind of extra steps in a manual way. All right. Thank you.
Okay. So Mr. Mayor asks, does the software calculate the earthworks disposal quantity from the BIM model?
Yeah. Okay, that's a great question. And I'm already in the quantities now. So basically what happens is that as soon as you calculate the quantity for excavation, it gives you the disposal volume, it gives you the soil backfill volume, and then it gives you the excavation quantity as well. And all these deductions can be then seen in the 3D view like we saw before. from the model, how did the deduction took place, which are the elements being deducted, and all of this. So in one click, in one calculation, you are getting all these 3 volumes just in your view quantity by category. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a question here regarding regarding the quality of concrete. Can we factorize the quantity of concrete and find out the quantity of cement, sand, water, as well as crew requirements?
Okay, that is, I need to look at here. So that is basically, that depends on the grade of concrete that you have chosen for each of the elements. So if I go to, let's say, column, and I go back to my ground floor, so I've got the columns here. If I select one of the columns, then I've got particular concrete grade, but it doesn't, normally it doesn't give you the what's it called, the design mix, breakdown of how much water or the cement or sand that you used for that concrete, or the, yeah, it doesn't give you that detail, to be honest. But you can choose the concrete grade from here, which is somewhere there. Yeah, that is right there. So I can choose the concrete grade right from the drop down here, and this will basically give me the concrete grade quantity based on this category. But then if you are looking for more details, as you said, the design mix, then it doesn't really give that quantity. Sorry about that. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so we've got a question here from Mr. Krishna Prasad, thanking us for the presentation. Thank you. I'm happy you enjoyed it. But how, for post-contract cost management, how is it done on the software?
Post-contract cost management. Okay. So as far as I can cover in post-contract cost management, is what we are looking.
It's a big topic.
Yeah, it's kind of big topic, but I can choose maybe a few functions to show them. There are ways of doing it. So like I said, you can set up the actual start date, schedule start date, actual end date, schedule end date, all of this for different subcontractor, flow zone, all of this setting here. So this will give you then categorized view of quantities for each of these elements. That is there. But then if you wanna, do some variations and stuff, then you just make changes. And like I showed you, you can set up variation 1, 2, 3, 4. And if it interlinked with the TBQ, then it reflects to the total amount of the project. It automatically adjusted there. So yeah, all of these adjustments that can be done in the post-contract stages. But then again, in cost management, you don't literally have to do the management manually, because like we looked at I don't have contractor version at the moment, but like we looked at the contractor version, that when we run the analysis, it basically distributes all the costs and it automatically updates all the costs for each of the trade, each of the element. So everything is linked more or less, if that answers your question. But obviously if we talk, we can go more and more detail into it. Yeah, so that will be my answer at the moment. But if you have really in any other concern, you can maybe send a question over here and we'll answer that in your email. Thank you. I think we have time for one more question.
Samim, you have to give me a few minutes for me also at the last. Yeah, I have 5 questions.
Yes, definitely, Mr. Ramesh. Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Atiba, is there any question that
well, I guess we can actually pass it over. But there's one question here regarding. My question was that if BIM is useful for infrastructure project, as much beneficial as for building projects.
Yeah, to answer that question, we have got the softwares, all the suites of software which are coming out from Cubicost that we looked at. So Cubicost recently built up another software which is I believe TBR. So the TBR software basically deals with the infrastructure work, like the road, the bridges, and other stuff. So in that one, it gives you a detail of the earthwork and all those different levels of your work. So everything in detail in those software. But I would prefer introducing that software sometimes later because it's still in the release version. Yeah. Thank you. I think we can now move ahead to Mr. Ramesh, maybe if he wants to ask some question. Mr. Ramesh, please.
Yeah, sure. I think, Samim, I think if we can stop the screen share, maybe we can on the webcam for a few minutes. Maybe people also will get see you, and as well as our questions are related to your product. Is that is possible? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Thank you so much.
No problem.
Mr. Atiba, you can take it over with the other screen. I'll stop the screen from here and then I'll turn on the video.
Yes. And
good to see you, everyone.
yes, and I request Mr. Atiba also. Yeah.
Hello. Hi.
Thank you. Thanks
Hi,
a lot.
thank you so.
Yeah, first of all, a very good presentation, very insightful, and covered with the aspect of the topic what you have given, and many appreciations are coming. And as a vote of thanks from my aims is really wonderful. Even I also listened after a long time. I saw the drawing, Samim.